Well, here we are, folks. And now, get started, let's just be blunt. I have to welcome all of you to Templar Strategic Solutions channel here on YouTube. And I don't know exactly where to begin, guys. We have been all over the grid with an assortment of changes here within the company in the past 20 months, 22 months. You'll have to forgive me. Yes, my office cat is over there fussing at me because the door is closed and I won't let her in. But as you can tell, our area has changed a little bit here as far as our workspace. We purchased a new home in in June of 2024. Worked all the way in through the end of the year with renovations and minor repairs to the interior, new paint, things like that. And of course, getting my office set up and comfortable. We lucked into finding a home that has a great little alcove room here, which fits my desk and my various equipment that I utilize on a daily basis quite nicely, and allows a separated space from the home and work life for me when I don't feel like going down to the storefront. Yes, guys, for those of you that are new to the channel, I know my left eye looks a little funky. Okay, I was in a rollover accident on an ATV when I was a boy. The eye socket is aftermarket. Okay, if you're going to hit me with something more original than the Quasimodo jokes, please. But for the rest of you that know me and know what Templar Strategic Solutions is about, we are going to be doing some backtracking a little bit as far as explanations, because I have folks that obviously need to get the general gist. We have new followers come to the page. We have new guests on the page, guys. And when that occurs, and I'm sorry, my nerve damage is acting up, which makes my face twitch. I want to sit here and I want to discuss with all of you for just a few minutes about some of the various services that Templar Strategic Solution offers, what kind of a company we are, things like that. To start out with, of course, we are a security and consulting firm. We provide guards and things like that. We'll get into those Q&A here in just a few minutes. But we also provide an assortment of professional services. We offer a 10-hour security officers fundamental training course that is open to the public and to our competitors. We also offer an assortment of other services. We provide West Virginia carry concealed firearms permit instruction. We also provide document courier services. We provide West Virginia General Notary. We have members in good standing with the National Notary Association, as well as certified National Notary Association notary signing agents. But aside from that, of course, we still provide things like our key holder service and general matters like that, guys. Now, recently, we have upgraded our licensure with the state of West Virginia to not only include our security guard firm, but to in fact change that license over to a combined private investigative and security guard firm license. What that means, guys, is that we are now also licensed and able to provide private investigative services. Now, yes, I have a little bit of heartburn, so of course I am a little glitchy. I apologize. It is what it is. This is a live feed currently, and I'm not going back and editing. So if to watch me occasionally address the tics in my face, or you occasionally have to watch me belch or readjust my posture, it's just going to have to happen. Now, moving forward, let's look at just some of what we've encountered in the past year, okay? In the past year, guys, we have encountered some substantial growth. You know, for those of you that are new to the channel, let me give you a little bit of history. Templar Strategic Solutions was founded back in March of 2022. Originally, we were just here to do consultation and provide some professional services. We hadn't even really looked hard into involving ourselves in the direct provision of security. Now, moving out of that, as we, of course, began delving deeper in, because if you're going to be a security consultant, you most certainly need to have an understanding in place of what's going on with your market. You have to understand, you know, what the state you work in or what market you work in. What are the rules and regulations pertaining to private security? And to do that, you have to, of course, turn around and you have to be able to really dig into all of the little legislation, all the little rules, all the little regulations in place. And you have to look for the spots where other companies might try to cut corners as providers. So to do that involved, of course, me spending days upon days upon days poring over rules, regulations, certification requirements, and all of those things. Forgive me, I'm going to mute this phone because it's, of course, pinging in my ear, and that annoys me. But, guys, the thing is, when it boils down, what we're looking at here specifically is the more we reviewed what is required of us with the security firms or what's required of our competitors at the time, you know, the security firms that were actively licensed. Again, we were only a consulting company. We discovered that in West Virginia, the training and standards were essentially deplorable. There were very minimal requirements to achieve your individual security guard license or your firm license. There was even more abysmal qualifications for an armed guard. West Virginia is a carry conceal state, or not carry conceal, but constitutional carry. And in the state of West Virginia, the only baseline requirement that I was able to find initially was a carry conceal weapons permit issued by your county sheriff. Guys, let me tell you, I spent or have spent now 26 and a half years in public safety, investigations, and contract security. And over those 26 and a half years, the vast majority of my time was spent registered and licensed through the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. When I got my start in private security, just like it is here in West Virginia now, down in North Carolina, we were still under the Secretary of State's office. Some years later, it transitioned over to the control of the Department of Public Safety and the Attorney General's office. And honestly, it was one of the best moves North Carolina ever made. It established more rounded mandatory training requirements, and in turn, it set a standard out there that had to be followed. It increased the accountability. It unfortunately did, over the years, there were some changes. When I first got my start, every tool on your belt you had to go to special training for. You had to have a certification card for. It had to be approved curriculum through the state, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what came of that was, as things progressed, it turned into the only thing the state really regulated as far as tools and equipment for the individual officer, it became that the state only maintained the standard rules for lethal force. Okay, that left a lot of training on the responsibility of private security agencies to handle it in-house. And from someone who has worked with multiple private security firms, some big names, some smaller names, let me tell you, the in-house training fluctuates. And guys, I'm sorry about pulling at my face like this, but I have a tic trying to start this evening, and it is driving me absolutely stupid. I apologize. It seems like every time I speak with my voice at a tone where it projects, the vibration causes my face to do the ticky, ticky, ticky. It's kind of funny sometimes. My kids enjoy laughing at it. A few of my friends give me static about it. Me, it just aggravates the thunder out of it. But it is what it is. Yes, I am drinking soda. But, you know, guys, the thing is here that the more we looked into the deficit, per se, of the private security industry training and standards in the state of West Virginia, the more I was compelled to pursue our security guard firm license and try to be an instrument of change in the market. Aside from the abysmal training and standards requirements, when we launched our guard firm license, when we achieved our guard firm license in August of 2022, the average state wage for an unarmed guard here in the great state of West Virginia was between $9 and $10 an hour. The overall average here in the state for an unarmed security guard was still only $9 to $10 an hour. Guys, that was in 2022. In 2022, $10 barely bought you a cup of coffee and a pack of cigarettes. And you've got these people that are willing to get into this industry. They're willing to be your so-called front line. And you have all of these things sitting there in that manner to factor into your daily decision. It's hard for a person to step in and really attempt to make a career out of a job that pays barely the equivalent of minimum wage. Now, one of the first things I wanted to look at was, okay, we want to pay our guards better money. So how do we do that? You know, what can we do to make it worth charging a client more on the hour, and in turn being able to charge our pay our personnel a better wage and make it justifiable to a client? You know, here we are, we're stepping into the private security industry in West Virginia. We're the new kids on the block, guys. You know, we've got Securitas, we've got Allied, we've got Security America. We have a dozen other competitors out there with well-established, long-established names. And my business partners and I, we sat down and we talked about it, and we realized I'm really good at one thing. Above and beyond all, I'm good at teaching. I'm good at taking a training module and breaking it down in a manner that even the most rudimentary of students is able to take something away and successfully apply the skill set. And, you know, you look at that, you look at the for me, it was, I'd been in leadership roles for well over a decade by then. I, at the time, was the staff sergeant for Black Hawk International Security down in North Carolina, based out of Clemens. And I was the guy that I took the new leadership officers, the officers who had exemplified the standards at Black Hawk. I was the guy that taught them how to be leaders. I was the guy that helped them transition into roles of advanced responsibility. So we sat down and we wrote, between myself and my one business partner, Sean Jones Jr., we wrote the training modules. We reviewed everything that we had seen that worked for other security companies in other states and even West Virginia, and conditions and environments that worked for us as officers with Black Hawk. And we looked at what didn't. We looked at where other agencies that we had been with, other companies we had worked with, other groups we had been parts of. We looked at what did and didn't work. We took what worked. We made the adjustments to make it fit with what the West Virginia market allows for. We did away with the things that don't work. We started working in North Carolina, paying an average of 10 to 12.5% more on the hour for an unarmed security guard than most of our competitors were paying their leadership officers. I have met employees of some of our competitors right now who are in leadership or pseudo-leadership roles who get paid their standard hourly wage, but their standard hourly wage is what we pay our guys to go to training. That bothered me, and then of course, what about mental health? I have been in this industry again, and I will reiterate, 26 and a half years. It's security work. It shouldn't be stressful, but it is. And it becomes exceptionally more stressful in states where the officer or security guard has fewer and fewer protections, and where their hands are increasingly bound by either antiquated rules and regulations or poor mandatory training and standards, because we know what we need to do. We know what needs to happen, but our hands are tied. And because of that, and because of the lack of training, these officers don't always know how to address these problems. But it is what it is, okay? And here's how that works, okay? Here's how this works for Templar. When I worked at Black Hawk, when I first promoted to sergeant, I was tasked with conditioning a new set of leadership officers to reestablish a proper chain of command for their Carteret County operations in North Carolina and down around Atlantic Beach, Moorhead, Havelock area, Beaufort. And the first thing I told my selected group of officers was this: I don't train guards. I train officers. A guard implies to me that this person is a poor skill set, that this person cannot handle what's coming, that if it hits the fan, guys, this individual is not going to be your first line of defense. That bothered me substantially. It really did. But at the same time, a little rework on the uniform, because, uniform is important. People don't always agree or understand that. I don't care. What you have to realize is that uniform, that's their business suit. Okay, that's what the officer wears when the officer is on the job. If the uniform looks like hot trash, the officer's going to perform like hot trash. If the uniform is sharp, squared away, and tidy, and looks professional, it's going to boost that officer's confidence, because they're not only going to feel professional and know they have a skill set if they've gone through our training correctly, but they're going to look professional. They're going to have that command presence when they step forward to take control of a matter. That's what we wanted. We used that training as marketing for our people, for our services. In 2023, we closed our books on $36,000 gross revenue. Not great, not horrible. At the time, we were a year old. Year and a half old company. And considering we only started out with about $14,000 in investment initially, I believe $36,000 was a reasonable return. Profit margins weren't as high as I would have liked after payroll, taxes, insurance, licensure, bonds, etc., but it is what it is. Well, then, fast forward to August of 2023. We picked up a construction client. It was supposed to be a 60 to 90-day contract, is what it was originally pitched to us as. Just general overnight security, 12-hour shifts, babysitting a construction site over in Kanawha County. And that contract lasted 15 months. That contract generated over $250,000 in gross revenue by itself. There was FEMA money involved. There was state money involved. There was county money involved. We had the pleasure of working with a $1 million security firm, or not security firm, but construction firm. We had the pleasure of working with the county. We had the pleasure of working with the state. We were able to achieve a great deal in a very short time, thanks to them. When we closed the books in 2024, and bear in mind, we started out with $14,000, guys. We closed the books at $360 plus thousand in gross. Boys and girls, that's 2 years. Not even quite 2 years. When we closed the books in 2024, we had grossed well over $300,000. We paid out a massive portion of that back out in payroll, taxes, and insurance, of course. But that's okay, because, again, look at the growth. $36,000 in 23, $360,000 plus in 24. That tells me we're doing something right. Okay? Well, the more I studied it, the more I realized that I wasn't okay with just doing security. I have, by myself, again, 26 and a half years of experience. And my experience ranges from investigations to private sector security, residential security, construction security, industrial security, Department of Defense security. I've worked with multiple companies who had what used to be called their GSA registration. Now I believe they call it SAM and CAGE, which we have all of those as well. But, in my 20s, it was nothing for me to sit in certain parts of North Carolina babysitting entire railroad trains full of military ordnance. I enjoyed it. I even got to work some security on the state ports and set and guard the gangway to make sure that individuals who were aboard vessels who had permission to dock for maintenance but did not have landing papers. And for those of you who don't understand it, it's real simple. If they don't have their papers, if they come past a certain point on the gangway, life gets very uncomfortable for them. If they exit that vessel in any manner other than that gangway, it becomes immediately unpleasant for them. That's the verbiage we're going to use, is immediately unpleasant. We're not going to discuss what exactly my orders were or how far my green light shined. Okay? Those of you that have been in this industry, you probably already know what I'm talking about. But over the past few months, one of our biggest changes has been, again, updating our firm license here with West Virginia to include our work as a security guard firm and a PI firm combined. Now, obviously, we get hundreds of questions, and I mean, some of them are so blatantly asinine, I'm not going to cover them. Others, we've gotten a lot of questions the past few months, so I wanted to touch and sit down with those and talk to you guys. And I know I've been running my mouth now for about 20 to 30 minutes. But, I actually took the time, guys, to type all these questions up even, because there were that many of them. And I took the highlight reel, so to speak, and I keyed out some answers for you. Make it a little easier for you and make me not sound quite so much like a gibbering idiot, because I do tend to babble and sidetrack. And I know I do. It's an unfortunate result of some neurological injuries that I have taken over the years and a little bit of ADHD. Diagnosed adult ADHD. It's great. So, obviously, who am I and what does Templar Strategic Solutions do? That's one of the very first questions I get hit with on the regular. Well, folks, my name is Jason Spaur, and I am one of the owners and the CEO of Templar Strategic Solutions. We're a private investigation and security services firm based in Roane County, West Virginia. We specialize in private investigative service and providing physical security solutions, ensuring that our clients are provided with solid information to make well-informed decisions and have the same agency that they go to make those informed decisions are able to reach out to us and arrange for their individual security concerns. And no, we don't install cameras or alarm systems or any of that nonsense. We provide legitimate physical security solutions. That means, boys and girls, boots on the ground security. Okay? And it is what it is. Boots on the ground security is vitally important. Now, what type of investigations do we handle? That's another big one that we have been bombarded with the past few weeks. And, we cover a lot of things. We handle, and it's not just limited to this list, but these are just a few examples of what we handle, guys. Infidelity and domestic investigations, domestic being, essentially divorce, infidelity, little things like that. Background checks and due diligence investigations and reports, obviously. Fraud and financial investigations, those are insurance investigations there, guys. And you'd be amazed how many private investigative firms are retained by insurance carriers and other individuals, especially with workers' compensation, to debunk these fraudulent claims. These fraudulent claims cost hundreds of thousands of dollars or more annually if they're not uncovered. So yes, if you decide to make a workers' compensation claim saying, oh, I hurt my back on the job. I lifted that brick wrong. I can never work again. I am so damaged. The insurance company's not going to pay out now. They're going to hire someone like me or my associates. And we're going to catch it if it can be caught. And of course, there is missing persons and skip trace. All right, guys, missing persons and skip tracing is just that. If a person comes up missing, if we're asked to help, we're going to help. And then with skip trace is an individual is out on bond, they owe a large debt, various reasons a person skips. But we pull the software, we pull from databases and interviews and everything else, and we pursue it until we're able to give at least a solid idea of where this person is located, if not successfully locate the person. Okay. And of course, then, you've got workplace misconduct and internal investigations. Not every business is substantial enough to have their own dedicated internal affairs division. Sometimes you run into a situation where you want as much plausible deniability as possible as an employer. And when I say plausible deniability, I mean you don't want it to come back on you and them to be able to say that you were a biased employer. But you have a situation that is detrimental to the overall functionality of your workplace. It could be creating hostile work environments. It could be harassment or allegations of harassment. And you want to be able to establish that you have truly given the most unbiased approach you could. So you've contracted with an outside party to review the incident, review the reports, review whatever necessary evidentiary material is there, as well as potentially uncover new evidentiary material in order to be able to take the appropriate actions. And then last but not least, yes, guys, Hollyweird got one thing right about private eye work. They didn't get a lot right, but they got one thing right, I can guarantee you. And that is that we work in criminal and civil litigation support. Now, what that means is, the prosecutor's office, the DA's office, or your defender's office, or your private attorney, whoever gets to us first gets to use our tools and our tricks. The reality is we're not out to convict you or prove your innocence or any of that. We're there to get to the truth of it. Simple put, guys. Now, obviously, people that talk about our investigative service, they want to know if we provide security. We've already covered that. Absolutely, guys. We do cover physical security. We handle event security. We handle personal protection. We handle risk assessments. We obviously handle basic consulting. We'll go in, we'll look at your current security protocols, and we will tell you if that protocol is meeting the needs we're finding, if it's addressing the concerns that we're able to find. We're going to go in essentially and we're going to pick your security apart. We're going to look at what you're doing. We're going to tell you what you're doing well, and we're going to tell you where you can make improvements. Are we going to try to sell you our security teams? No. We're not going to, if we're there for an assessment, we're not going to try to sell you security, but we will tell you from our perspective and our professional opinions what we're going to do, guys. All right. Now, whether it's events, whether it's an ongoing security presence, we're going to work with you to set up these events the best we can and these contracts the best we can to absolutely meet your particular needs. And then of course everybody wants to know about confidentiality. Well, the reality comes down to this. When it comes to our work, Templar Strategic Solutions, all of our employees are required upon beginning employment to sign a non-disclosure agreement. So yes, everything we do is considered confidential. We don't discuss your security protocols outside of the work environment with anybody not directly attached to your organization, your personal security situation, or our internal teams that are directly impacted by your service. Same with private investigations. I am not going to let one of our people go out there and chitter chat and tell John Q, whoever down the road, about what we're looking into, what we're investigating. That's none of their business. If they're not paying our invoices, they don't need to know unless they're a judge, a lawyer, a peace officer who wants to know why we're in a neighborhood where we're not recognized. We may tell them that we are a private investigative firm and we're working in surveillance. We'll provide them with documentation proving who we are as a company, but we don't have to sit there and give them all the details all at once. Now, of course, they ask how we help with these legal cases. The reality is we work with attorneys to gather evidence for civil and criminal cases. Our reports, our surveillance footage, witness interviews, they can all provide critical support for your legal proceedings. Good or bad. It depends on which side of the bench you're sitting on, whether you are defense or you are prosecution. If you're the one being prosecuted, you may not want to see us come to the table. Then again, if the attorney who's defending you is the one who contracted us, you might like seeing us there. Whereas if, the prosecuting attorney hires us, we're going to dig in and we're going to compare the reports. That's just what we do, guys. We're going to go out, we're going to find the evidence that hopefully they missed. And yes, at the end of the day, we want the truth. And that's why we're there. They ask how we go about conducting these investigations. Reality is every case is very unique. Our approach is tailored to those specific needs for each individual client. We use a combination of surveillance, background research, interviews, digital forensics, other techniques, all to gather accurate and actionable information. And then of course, the big question they all ask about private investigative work, guys, is how much do your services cost? That entirely varies based on the complexity and the duration of an investigation, guys. It could be some free initial consultation that you never see a cost for. It could, in fact, roll back to things like, the platforms that we use, the databases that we access that the average person cannot get their hands on without being licensed. Guys, those situations, those platforms and those databases are not cheap. But there's a reason that they're not available to every person. We pull DMV records, we pull court dockets, we pull certain things that are not always actionable or accessible to the general public. Those services, they're going to cost a little bit more money because we have to pay either annually or per use, but there's a lot of money going in and out on that. And yes, we do charge a small markup when we use one of our services, because it's not just the service that you're paying for at that point. You're paying for our billable hours while we're doing those background reports and running those histories and doing the research and compiling the reports and summaries that you as the client or your attorneys or whoever may need. And then of course you get people that want to know, well, how do we hire you? Well, hiring us is easy. Hiring us involves simply calling our offices at 304-591-9787 or visiting our website at templarstrategicsolutions.com. We're happy to discuss it with you. We'll outline processes with you general cost estimates and general expectations on both sides so that you're able to make the most informed decision. And of course, at the end of the day, guys, not every case is going to get accepted. Not every security client is going to get accepted. The funny thing about it is, yes, we're here to make money, but we're here to do it the right way. If you come to us and, oh, I own a nightclub and I want to hire your people to come in and run our security, we may not be interested in that. Not because you might not need security, but because that's not what we do. We do not want to take a contract where it's almost a guarantee that we're going to have to get physical with people. Private security, our end game objective is the preservation of life and property, guys. Simple as that. We're not out there to be fancy bouncers. If you want a bouncer, go hire a bouncer. Hire an in-house security for your bar. Hire an in-house security for your own personal private little club. You pay the insurance on that, and you take on that liability. We're not interested in that added liability. Now, when you talk about the investigations, I'm going to be very blunt. No case is accepted without us doing a solid assessment and background on your case. The reason for that is very, very simple, guys. You would be amazed at the number of people who go out there and when they get a hold of the concept of hiring a private investigator to look into someone or look into a case, their first objective seems to always be, oh, I want all the dirt. I want all the juicy gossip. I want everything they've ever done wrong. I want you to count their sins. Well, in part, that is kind of what we're going to do if we dig in and we find them doing bad. But before we accept that case, we need to make sure that the person of interest, the target, the person you want us surveilling, or the matter you want us digging into, that you're digging into it for a reasonable and justifiable reason, and you're not just digging into it just to smear somebody. There is a great quote that I have heard most of my life that it says, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. You'd be surprised how many hell hath no fury moments I have seen with supposed infidelity or divorce cases. And it's not always the woman here. It's not always the jilted bride, but whichever partner seems to be on the downswing of this case, they're the ones that usually come after us for these infidelity investigations. I get it. Things happen. People have skewed moral compasses. And we're happy to help you if we can, guys. Don't get me wrong. But we're going to know who we're looking at before we go look at them. And the reason for that is because we don't want you utilizing a service like ours, especially our investigative side, simply to drag some innocent individual or some otherwise harmless individual through the mud. So no, we can't guarantee that we'll take every case that comes our way. We can't guarantee we'll take every security client. We can't guarantee we'll take every private investigative client. And if that offends you or hurts your feelings, I'm okay with that, guys. I really am, just so we're on the same page. Because if it offends you that we have scruples and we have standards and we vet our cases and our clients before we accept them, then you're probably one of the types that we wouldn't accept to begin with. Because a reasonable person would understand that, we do this because we don't want to damage someone's reputation or credibility if they don't stand to be proven reasonably responsible for questionable behavior or inappropriate behavior. I've personally seen just how petty some people can be in this industry. Years ago, I was working with an investigative firm out of Pennsylvania. I was working a workman's comp investigation down here in West Virginia, and it was hilarious. I had followed this gentleman for a few days and had not been able to catch a thing on him. He was doing everything by the book. And evidently, his spouse found out that he had been entertaining conversations with someone. This woman calls the insurance company. The insurance company calls me. Those two had gotten together. They set up a meeting. This man's wife came to me and brought me pictures of him in the yard on the weed eater and video of him on the weed eater and lawnmower and everything else. And he's supposed to have sustained a massive injury to his back on a construction site. And these videos were taken less than 30 days after his supposed accident. Think about that. That goes back to that hell hath no fury situation. Now, in this instance, yeah, he deserved it. But guys, not everybody deserves that. Not everybody deserves to come under that scrutiny because not everybody is guilty of what people suspect. That's why we reiterate so many times over that with private investigation, we're there to find truth. We're not necessarily there to find the information you want. We're there to either prove or disprove your concern. And realistically, guys, that's all I want us to be able to do is bring peace of mind, bring closure, because just like it says on our website, closed cases equal closure. Now, moving past that, we had a question of ethics come up the other day. We had a potential client wanting us to access certain records that are, in fact, outside of our reach without court orders and subpoenas. Those have to come from your attorney, which means your attorney has to either acquire the information themselves or they have to get it and have it included in the subpoena, in the order itself, that the information will be released to us. Okay, that's how this works. So from there, you have to look at the fact that, you know, this person asked us, when I explained that situation, their first response was, well, can't you hack their employer's system and get this, that, and the other? No. Outright, no questions asked, no. That is a massive professional violation. That is a massive ethics violation. That could cause our company to be sued. That could cause our company to lose all of our licensure and credibility. That could put our almost 20 employees out of work. I'm not okay with that idea, guys. So, no, we won't be engaging in unethical behavior or practice for you. We're not going to sit there and give you guys any sort of fraudulent statements or help you fabricate evidence or obtain evidence illegally, at least not knowingly so, in order to simply justify your own gratification. Now, I know this has not been the most productive video. It'll probably be one of our lowest rated, and I'm okay with that, guys. I really am. It's been a long time since I've done anything like this online, and I do hope that all of you that stayed with us or that view this later on the replays, I hope you guys get something out of this. And again, you know, if we can help you, if we can provide security services for you, or we can offer consulting or anything along those lines, by all means, do reach out. Give us a call at the office at 304-591-9787. Visit our website at TemplarStrategicSolutions.com. We'll be happy to help any way we can, as long as we can. Again, the handful of you that have popped in and out of the feed tonight, I thank you. And I hope all of you have a great evening. Stay safe, folks.